Vikas, and we are in the midst of this unfortunate pandemic. But one of the silver linings, if you might, is that a lot of people are trying out a lot of new recipes at home because we're getting that much time. So today we will try and make a Scottish cookie, which is called shortbread. And one of the reasons for me to conduct this workshop is that to take the fear out of baking out of people, because when we cook it's very easy because everybody cooks, but when it comes to baking, a lot of people get a little inhibited. They think it's very difficult to cook, or it's to bake, or it requires a lot of technique. But it doesn't really. So we will make this recipe, although it's a very simple recipe. But I think when you give out a recipe, it should be something that people would want to try it out. And if it is very intimidating, it's very difficult, then people would normally not try it. So we'll make a shortbread, and very simple ingredient. They're right in front of you. We have butter. Now, one of the main ingredients and one of the most important ingredients of the shortbread is the butter. So you should use good quality butter. Right here, I've used Amul butter, best quality. And as you can see, it's chilled. So butter should be chilled and cubed. I'll tell you the reason later. So I've got about 100 grams of butter. I've got icing sugar, which we will also put inside. It's about 100 grams of icing sugar. Now, what we need to do is, and this is flour. This is our normal flour. In the flour, we'll mix a few things. What we'll mix is, first of all, rice flour. Chawal ka atta jo hum log ke ghar mein hota hai. So in about 200 grams of flour, you mix about 50 grams of rice flour. In the same, we'll mix about 50 grams of almond flour. ये roasted almond powder किया हुआ है, जो हम लोगों ने powder करा है. वो मैं डालूंगा इसमें, करीब 50 ग्राम करीब. Then I have lemon zest. So what we've done is we've just taken the lemon and zested it. With a grater, we've just taken out the zest of those lemons. It gives a nice, slightly citrusy taste to our shortbread. And then we will just mix it together, all the dry ingredients, which is our flour, and this is an eggless recipe, so there's no egg in it. And we'll mix all of it together, and then we'll put it in the butter. Now what we have to do is, with our hands, we have to what we call rubbing in the flour. So we will rub in the cold chilled butter into the flour, kind of creating an aeration, and rubbing it together. And how long we have to rub it? We have to rub it as long as the flour, it starts to resemble the texture of coarse breadcrumbs. Now you have seen breadcrumbs, and it's very easy to identify that texture. And you have to just keep rubbing it. If you have a food processor, you might as well want to do it there. But the idea is that the butter should not melt. The butter should not melt, it should not release its fats at this moment, and it should just be crumbled along with the flour. So as you can see, I'm easily able to crumble it, and you just keep crumbling it as long as it's required. Now in this, we'll add a few liquid ingredients. Since there's no egg in this recipe, in most cookies recipe you'll find eggs, there's none here. So we'll add a little bit of cream. Again, dairy cream, Amul cream. This is about 50 grams worth of cream, which we'll add inside. This is vanilla essence. You should use always pure vanilla essence. What we do in our bakeries is we use something called a vanilla bean. So this is the vanilla bean, if you can see, part of vanilla bean. We just split it open, take out the seeds and use it in our recipe. If you can't find the vanilla bean, vanilla essence is as good. And then you mix it. So after mixing it, it should form a kind of a dough. Now, most important thing about making any cookie is that you should not mix the dough too much. So when you are mixing it, you'll probably think it will not come together. But believe me, eventually it will. If you find the dough is a little dry, you can add a little bit more cream and just keep forming a dough. Now our dough is done, and do not, like I said, do not knead it too much. So it should be something like that. When it forms into a ball, you cover it and you keep it in a cling film and put it in the fridge. This stage is very, very important. You have to rest the dough. So when it's fully rested, it will form all those gluten inside, all the proteins, and it form into a cohesive dough. And it's also very important that the dough is relaxed, otherwise if you try to knead it now, you'll not be able to knead it. It will just go all over the place. So we'll keep it in the fridge covered for about an hour and a half. And after that, your dough should become something like this. So I have it here, which we made about an hour back. So the dough is something like this. It's nice and pliable and soft, something like that. But as you can see, it's still very short, which is to say that it has quite a bit of fat in it, and therefore, you have to be careful while rolling it. So here I have some flour. Just sprinkle a little bit of flour, and we'll roll it to say about 2 millimeter thickness. In commercial kitchens, of course, we use machines to roll it, but at home, and like I said, this is a very, very simple recipe. You can easily make it at home. You can just use your normal baler, your normal rolling pin, and just roll it about 2 millimeter thin. You'll come to know. And what we'll do now is we'll just cut it. Our cookie cutter here, with any cutter really. And this is a tray which we commercially use, stainless steel tray. Whichever tray you have, just sprinkle a little bit of flour. If you want to grease it, you can do that. And then just cut out cookies. So I'm cutting out these cookies. And obviously the leftover dough, you can again roll it and then keep cutting it unless you have no more dough. So as you can see, I'm just placing my cookies very simply onto the tray that I have. And what we will do now is that we will bake these cookies. But before doing so, what is very traditionally done for shortbread is that we'll sprinkle it with sugar or breakfast sugar, like we call it. So I have some breakfast sugar here, and I'll just simply sprinkle a little bit of breakfast sugar on the cookies that we've just made. And we'll just send them for baking. At this stage, if your dough is cold, if it's still cold, you do not need to chill it any further. But in the event of you're rolling the dough and if it takes a long time and it becomes kind of warm, or you see that it starts to get moist, you have to put it back in the fridge for about 15-20 minutes. Then you have to bake it. You have to bake it in about 180 degrees centigrade oven for about, it should take about 10 to 12 minutes. So you have to see when they're nice and golden brown, that is when they're done. And I have some which we have pre-baked. Here you go. So once your cookies, your shortbreads are baked, they should look something like this, round around the edges. And you can still see the caster sugar still stuck on there. And they should just be nice and brown. And normally if you have made your dough well, they will never stick to your pan. What we will do now is we'll just make it slightly more exciting. They are good as they are. As you can see, they are very short, which is to say they are very crisp. ये खस्ता जिसको हिंदी में हम लोग बोलते हैं. और ये बहुत ही, क्योंकि इसमें चीनी भी ज़्यादा नहीं है, जैसे मैंने रेसिपी में आपको बताया. So they are good to eat as it is, dunking in tea or coffee, or excellent for kids. But since we are here, we'll slightly jazz it up a little bit. So here I have some dark melted chocolate, which I have melted before. So what we'll do is we'll create cookie sandwiches with jam and with chocolate. So it will be a treat for the children. It can be a nice tea time treat, tea time thing that we can have. So what we'll do is we'll just hold our cookie like that and dip it in the chocolate. Very simply, dip in the chocolate like that and just keep it on your plate. And we'll just wait for it to solidify, to become cold. So obviously, because you have to have 2 cookies to a portion, you'll want to dip half of your cookies and leave the other half for putting jam on top. So here you go. We have done some cookies which we will leave it. Our room is air conditioned, it will set in the meantime. In the meantime, the other cookies, we'll just turn them around. And we have mixed fruit jam here. So the mixed fruit jam that we get in our houses. What we'll do is we'll just smash it a little bit so it just becomes a little more creamier and pliable, so we can pipe it in our cookies. And I have a piping bag here. I'll just cut a little bit. And we just put the jam inside the piping bag. You can use any jam. I've used mixed fruit jam here. You can use any, if you have any homemade jam, you can use that. You can use marmalade. But the only thing is that you should smoothen it out a little bit, otherwise it will be very difficult to pipe. And we just put little drops of jam onto our cookies, like so, like you can see. And then we will just cover them with our chocolate dipped cookie. In the chocolate dipped cookie, they're almost done. I have some sprinkles here, nice for kids, so we'll just sprinkle a little bit of these rainbow sprinkles onto a chocolate covered shortbread. And we'll just simply place it on top of the jam layered shortbread, the bottom part. And we'll just keep them until they're nice and set. Should take about 15-20 minutes depending on what kind of environments you made it in. And they're good to go. And it's a very nice, easy recipe to make, when you have some time. You can make them, the shortbread, like so. You can make them keep up to about 15 days in airtight containers, away from direct sunlight. And never store them in the fridge, like all of the biscuits and cookies. They've done something very, very fast. So they are almost done here. And after they are done, they should be looking something like this. I have a small plate here. So these are our shortbreads, which are already done. The chocolate has nicely dried out and looking nice and glazy. You can see the jam in between and a little bit of sugar. So you get multiple textures. You get that crunchy, sugary texture from the sprinkled sugar. You get that gooey, jammy, and slightly citrusy texture from the jam that you put inside. And obviously you get that chocolatey and slightly bitter taste and texture from the chocolate which is on top, which also will crack. You can try and cut, I'll try and cut one for you just to show you how it should look in the middle. It should look something like that. And nice and easy, you can, if you want, you can dunk them into tea or coffee, or you can have them just like that. I'm sure kids will love it with their milk, or, if you're going somewhere, obviously after the quarantine is over, quarantine period is over, the lockdown is over. If you're going somewhere, they make for beautiful gifts. For any occasion, even generally you go, you can just take a box of them. You're going on a dinner party or something. So these are our almond shortbread, which are filled with jam and coated with dark chocolate. It has been my pleasure to host this event with Amul for all of you. I hope you like it. Thank you very much.
Finish.
Yeah. Finish.